Guys, for the longest, I have been against the Electoral College. I just have been. But of course, that's my overall ignorance, I'd say, at least. I'm no longer against the Electoral College, but growing up, I've just been like, why do we need that? Like, why is that even relevant? And it has no actual value to American society. Thinking, obviously, growing up in New York, that nothing matters outside of New York, if that makes any sense. And you can pretty much ask another New Yorker, I'd say, the average New Yorker, and they're going to literally tell you, nothing matters outside of New York, bro. Like at all. It took me having to leave New York and moving out of New York and just to understand actually what the Electoral College does. Like it allows people with different point of views, different ways of life to still have their vote that matters, guys. It's important because if not, you know what would happen? Guys, I'll tell you right now. The cities that are basically overrun with all types of criminality and bad leadership, right? These individuals are going to basically run all of the United States of America. The last thing we need, okay, is for that nonsense to infect areas where they live differently, guys, right? So the goal is, with the Electoral College, at least in my mind, at least, is to give people a voice that legitimately may not actually have a voice if the Electoral College didn't exist. That's where I'm at, right? Mainly middle America and some like rural places. Like, I mean, the guys, their vote matters, just like yours and ours do, like in the city, in fact, guys. All right? Without it, they have no voice. All right? And that does not give a really just system, I don't think, at least. And for the longest, I mean, the Democrats actually wanted to get rid of it anyway. This isn't new, guys. Right? They've been wanting to get rid of it. Popular vote wins exclusively. But now I don't see the Democrat Party at all winning popular vote any longer until they realize the errors in their ideologue ways, let's say. Okay? Until then. But either way, name of the video is Dems move to abolish the Electoral College after Trump win. This is a suggestion via Discord. Guys, are any of you actually surprised? I'm not. Let's do it.
President-elect Donald Trump is celebrating his dominant election win on social media. He posted this picture of his signed Pennsylvania Electoral College ballot yesterday, writing, "Our big Pennsylvania win, so nice." And Trump didn't just win Pennsylvania. He won all 7 swing states and more than 300 electoral votes, leading to a massive victory. And, of course, the popular vote. Now, just weeks later, a coalition of Democratic senators are looking to change our Constitution and abolish the Electoral College. Their proposed amendment reads in part, "In an election, the person who gets the most votes should win." It's that simple. No one's vote should count more based on where they live. The Electoral College is outdated and it's undemocratic. It's time to end it. And Democratic New York Governor Kathy Hochul is already signaling her support.
Unfairly less populated states have outsized influence, and in fact, the votes of their residents count more than the residents of a state like New York.
Okay.
Consider that a single elector in Wyoming, no offense to Wyoming, represents 200,000 residents. And in New York, an elector like you represent 700,000. It's time to amend the Constitution and relegate the institution of the Electoral College to the history books.
Now listen, now don't get me wrong, like thinking about it for a second. Popular vote should in fact win, right? In my head at least, right? But this is where I go back to my overall upbringing in New York, where she just spoke from, okay? The issue that I have here pretty much consistently is that, yes, if the most people are going to vote for something, they should definitely do it. But the problem is that groupthink is the reality in a lot of these situations here. If you live in an area where you're basically going to vote for one specific person and you know it, you could drive down the street and you see what that is. Okay. Without the group think, would they be voting the same way? Like, I think that's my overall dilemma here. You're silencing a gigantic amount of people who live in rural areas that are basically spread out drastically, and they don't go through group think in the same manner. Okay, and kind of, that's kind of where I'm lying with this here, right? it's an interesting thing. I mean, there are definitely great arguments to be had coming from abolishing it and not abolishing it. Abolishing it. Apologies, guys. Right? There are great arguments to be had, but I'm going to lean more on the fact of not abolishing electoral colleges because it would, in fact, destroy communities. Like that seriously would, because everyone would then flock to the city. What's the point of living spread out any longer? Because, your vote doesn't matter now, guys.
This is how I know they're sore losers and they're liars. These are the people who gave us the super delegates.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, they didn't just want delegates.
Yeah, the
they
super
wanted
super
delegates
delegates
to wear capes.
And then rigged their own primary twice. And then of course threw out the guy that won the primary and replaced it with somebody else because they thought that maybe she would do better, and she didn't. I think that Democrats should be very careful about this. I think that this is a short-term partisan attack on the Constitution in a way that may backfire in ways that they can't foresee.
Yeah.
It's not going to go anywhere.
The founders recognized the importance of giving states the power because, and it's really important, and it was very prescient because if you fast forward to today, the reason they wanted the states to have this power is because they were worried that the federal government wouldn't have a check on it. And the reason that states have this power is because they're the only entity in our government that can stand up to the federal government. And my worry.
So are you making an argument for the United States of America to basically have somewhat of a parliament, guys? That's what it sounds like. That's the argument you're making, slightly.
Only entity in our government that can stand up to the federal government. And my worry, the consequences of doing something, I don't think it's doable and I don't think they'll succeed, but the consequences would be disastrous. And I think it would also probably hurt them in ways that they can't foresee.
It wouldn't hurt them at all. Like at all. What would happen immediately is that the left would immediately take over everything, basically permanently, because of the groupthink aspect of things. Right? Corporations would now be, virtue signaling in ways that are absolutely insane, so they can, make more money in the long run, to our literal detriment, guys. This would destroy the United States of America without the Electoral College. If you remove the voices of individuals that choose not to live in, majority cities, guys, nothing good comes from this.
Kennedy, do we want the people who literally could not figure out not to close down everything and lock us down in COVID to then be able to cut out the rights of voters that were foundationally carved for states? Do we want them to do that?
No, we don't, and everyone knows that, and that's why it's so difficult. That's why the process was designed to be difficult to amend the Constitution, because it had to do something that would have long-lasting ramifications that we could agree on as a society, and all it would take is for a Republican to win the popular vote and a Democrat to win the electoral vote, and then
for
they would
them to
completely switch
Yeah.
course, which will
Absolutely.
probably happen because our politics are only going to get weirder and weirder as the two parties sort of age out their Humpty Dumptys like Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi, who can't stay upright. So a newer generation of people is going to come forward, and they're going to appeal to voters in different ways. And so everything will continue to get flipped on its head. The Constitution should not be one of those things. And you're also going to ignore everyone in the middle. So that means presidential hopefuls will only be campaigning in New York, California, Texas, and Florida. And
Exactly. Only the large cities, guys. I'm telling you, that is it. They're going to find the biggest city they possibly can to kind of, soak up the group think type of thing, right? And they're only going to campaign there. They only care about these people's issues. That's it. This is not a good thing for us.
they're basically saying, suck it, Iowa.
Wow. Right now, aren't all of those sanctuary cities?
I mean, they're
And states, I should say.
they're
Yes.
spreading like scarlet fever.
Oh my goodness. All right. And in her lovely scarlet fever, like oxblood skirt, Rosanna Scott.
So this is what I have to say, Harris. Governor Hochul has so many problems in New York City and in the state. It's kind of interesting that she's talking about this. Her administration did a redrawing of the congressional maps, okay, which was overturned. Okay, and then Nancy Pelosi basically blamed her for losing congressional seats and messing up everything in D.C. So I don't know. Does Governor Hochul really have any weight when she comes out and talks about electoral votes? I'm not really sure.
Not really. No. Not really.
Yeah,
No.
it's perfect. Look, nothing is more rich than these Democratic individuals saying that the current state is undemocratic when they removed the duly elected candidate for their own party for the presidency and expected everyone to just sit back and swallow it. And you're exactly right. What they are indeed telling the other states, as Hochul said, no offense to Wyoming, no, actually offense taken. That's exactly what you are projecting, is an elite smugness for the volume of your population, by the way, is fleeing to sunnier, warmer, more business-friendly states. The reality...
No, not really. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but no, not really. Not what you just said is like just factually incorrect. I mean, there have been people as they're aging out, basically, deciding to move down to like Florida and things like that. But gigantic swaths of people are in fact not leaving New York. New York is a trap, guys. Okay, it is hard to exist as a New Yorker. Specifically for the first couple of years outside of New York, like, it's hard to exist knowing that everything is far from where you are currently standing. Right, every single thing. Every time you get in a car, you're going to be gone for 30 minutes and things like that. No, the average New Yorker is just not going to want to ever deal with that. That sounds like, that sounds crazy. Let's just say. But yeah, people are not just running from New York, guys. Sounds like a dream, but she's normally pretty accurate, but that just sounds crazy to me.
reality is every single one of their constituents should take note that that is how their representative is spending their time. And I am one of them. So Governor Hochul, to your point, exactly. There are a million issues just on this block that she should be addressing. And she should stop, again, getting onto the caboose of what they think will earn them. I think it's strokes in Congress, because there is no way that any valid member of a constituency actually wants their representative to be doing this right now versus actually legislating, or more aptly,
you'll be surprised,
upending legislation.
That's right. Maybe a stay coupon at the Roosevelt Hotel for her. So she can check out the border crisis.
That might be interesting.
Bring your mace. Hey, everyone.
All right, guys. Yeah, I'm just like thoroughly against it. Like, now that I even hear more information kind of about it, I mean, it just basically solidified my overall opinion. And my overall opinion is that you can't remove the voices of people who just do not want to live in gigantic cities. Gigantic cities are generally ran terribly and filled with all types of criminality. A lot of that could come from, odd rates of poverty, just close proximity to other people and their ideologies and thought processes. That could, in fact, infect you. Things are generally more expensive there, but yet you have people that are more so, even more in poverty at times in places like this. There are a lot of issues in big cities, guys. I'm just glad I don't live in one. Right, I'm just gonna be honest here, and I can only tell you what from my own personal experience. I'm glad I'm no longer in New York personally. My life has changed in such drastic ways. It's just not for me anymore, bro. That's not it. But getting rid of the Electoral College is absolutely silly. Okay, silly. Don't do it. Don't even talk about it, guys. I mean, how about this? No. Conversations are always good, right? But as long as there's nothing really being done to specifically eradicate a program that just gives people their voice, in a sense, is a little silly. Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about actually abolishing it, but we can have hypothetical debates kind of regarding if we should or not. That's always fun. Thought experiments are great, guys, right? But either way, listen, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day. Enjoy your day thoroughly. This is my lightsaber. Hey guys, you guys subscribe to the other channels? Logical Movie Reviews with Mr. L. Boyd, along with Mr. L. Boyd Music. Oh, also, Mr. L. Boyd Discusses. Guys, check it out. And if you haven't heard it today, it's amazing.